All right, it is Monday, which is usually our Thompson to Clark slot. Brad is on vacation, but Brian is here. So we're going to talk some Valkyries, Warriors, WNBA Finals, Nafisa Collier throwing some shots, and just kind of the beginning of the NBA as well. So, Bri, what's going on here? I think the last time we talked, Jonathan Kuminga wasn't even signed yet.
I mean, that was the talk of the summer, and thank God that that's done. And I think we predicted it correctly. Before we were just like, he has to sign. Like I think can't exactly remember what we said, but I think it was like a week or two later that he ended up signing. So, yeah, I mean, I guess the agent got him a couple more million. Good for the agent, but I feel like the relationship of the age, like especially the agent and the Warriors, like I think that they are just like, we hate this guy, like we just don't want to like do business with this guy because I think the Warriors, I think Dunleavy had something where he's like, we like to keep everything pretty private, and then the agent was the one who kind of went on that podcast tour basically saying that this offer was like disrespectful, and they ultimately took that offer. So yeah, negotiating, right?
Yes, and excuse me, Kuminga himself, now he's got to answer all of these questions about whether he's expecting to be here for a long time, whether he can fit in. I think Steph was pretty specific in his comments about kind of the expectation. We'll get into the Warrior stuff in a second here. We'll kick it off with our Pod Holla segment talking Golden State Valkyries. So there's not a ton to talk about as it pertains to the Golden State Valkyries. Obviously, they're in the offseason. They're watching the WNBA finals just like we are. But I was actually interested because I know you were following a few of the players and where they were playing overseas and trying to, keep an eye on how they were doing. I've seen some stuff that, Janelle's like playing really well, and this is coming off of her all rookie WNBA team. What about some of the other players? Do you have an idea where they're at right now?
Yeah, I know where mostly everyone's at roughly. I haven't really tuned into the Euro League or European seasons to kind of actually visually watch, but yeah, Carla and Yuste are both in the Spanish league. And I believe Ceci's in the Italian league, playing where Janelle played last year. I think Janelle and now Caitlin Chen. Caitlin Chen joined Janelle's team. The Czech teams like USK Praha or something like that. I don't know how good I am with that pronunciation. And then Monique and Illy are in the Turkish league. They're playing for Fenerbahce, which is like a pretty popular team. I think it's the one Misaman was on. They have a lot of WNBA players. I mean, who else? Veronica, we have confirmed, is playing Unrivaled. Kate's playing Unrivaled. I remember Amihir said she was going to play in China, but you know what? Amihir's also on Yuste's team for the time being in Spain. I haven't seen any updates though on how people are playing. I've seen a few Yuste highlights, and just that corner three is cash. But shout out to the Discord because we have someone who's like actually watching and keeping up with this stuff. So to give some promo to our Discord, I think people should join because we have someone who's, and maybe you could say the name because I don't remember the name of the user, but he's got it all down. He knows exactly where everyone is. He's watching Euro League and all the other leagues as well.
Yeah, hopefully they're not offended that I'm giving away the name that they use. But Dutch E, shout out to Dutch E, who's keeping us up to date on the ongoings internationally. And then we've talked about this already, but there are several Valkyries players who are playing in Unrivaled. Monique Billings, Kate Martin, Veronica Burton. It doesn't sound like Tip is playing, right?
Doesn't look like it.
So we'll be able to get our fix there. And we'll talk a little bit about Unrivaled in a second because I think it's related to this conversation that we're going to have about Nafisa Collier and her comments about the commissioner of the WNBA in Kathy Engelbert. But is there anything that you're specifically paying attention to as it pertains to the Valkyries off season? You know, before we get into the free agency, before we get into draft stuff again, before we get into expansion draft, is there anything like you're trying to keep an eye on as far as, you know, anything towards next year? Like it is really the dullness of the season until the finals are over, and then it kickstarts again with off season.
No, I mean, because like everything kind of hangs on the CBA negotiations. I believe they have like an October 31st deadline that does not seem like it's going to be met. I wonder if the lockout's happening. Like literally, like the expansion draft rules is what's the most important news for the Valkyries to come next. And you can't do that unless you have like the CBA figured out, right? So you really can't look forward to, I mean, the only thing I could think of is, you know, Vanya. Vanya was the VP. I forget her official title for the Valkyries, but she's now the GM of the Portland Fire. I guess they got to replace that position if they haven't replaced it already. But other than that, like, no, I mean, can't really do anything until these expansion rules come, which I think rely on the CBA negotiations.
Yeah, and we'll see that this offseason might get started before we even realized if Vegas keeps playing the way that they're playing. And actually, let's just kick it off and let's talk about the NBA or the WNBA finals here. Las Vegas and Phoenix game 1 was an awesome basketball game. I was just amazed at how good the teams were playing in game 1. Now there were a few things here and there where you're like, oh, you know, first finals game jitters, but overall the game was excellent. Game 2, not so much for Phoenix. Las Vegas pretty much controlled that game. You know, maybe after the first quarter was over. But what is your takeaway from the first 2 games? Vegas holds court. The first 2 games in Vegas, they win both. Now we're going back to Phoenix. Phoenix has got to win 2 out of the next 3, you know, to really have a chance going back to Vegas. Or actually, does it go 2-1-1-1 like the NBA? I don't know how the schedules. I'll look because I have it up while you're talking.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'd guess is 2-2-1-1-1. Right?
So
That's what the NBA does.
What are your takeaways here with the series so far?
It's not looking so good for Phoenix. I think there's only like a handful of things they can change, and the rest is kind of just reliant on like that home court role player stepping up in home, maybe getting more of a favorable whistle. But, you know, I think something that stuck out to me was and you know, Ryan Ruocco was on it, like saying it, and I'll say 2 things: is that the Satu Sabali kind of shot diet, where, you know, she gets the ball at the top of the 3-point line, start of the possession, and just kind of jacks it. And, you know, you look at her box score, and it was actually a pretty darn good box, aside from like 1 for 7 or 1 for 8 from 3. But from the field, it looks good. Like points looks good. Like everything looks pretty good. But I think just her, I think this is what I noticed in the first game versus the Liberty. She was just like kind of just chucking shots. And then the second game, there's a real intention to drive to the rim and get shots close to the basket. And that was, to me, aside from Breanna Stewart getting hurt, of course, but like that was the turning point, is that Satu is the X factor. She gets like in the paint and then she could work her way inside out. Like that is what I think gives them the best opportunity to win. So, I mean, you know, I think Alyssa Thomas was in a little bit of foul trouble, 4 fouls, but I think she was kind of playing 4 for a while. So other than that, like, I think it is just, you know, the Aces are just playing so well. Like it's Asia, Jackie, and Chelsea that are all playing like insane. Like Jackie could win the dang finals MVP, but I think they have some role players that have been stepping up. And I think Dana Evans has been the one that's kind of caught my eye the most. And, you know, only 5 points, but I just feel like there's a calmness and when the ball's in her hands, like you feel like something good's going to come out of it. So, you know,
she was on fire in game 1.
Totally.
She was 5 of 6 from 3. So yeah, game 2, they didn't really need her to be that, but game 1, she was kind of the reason they won the game.
There's a lot of DeWanna Bonner minutes, 23 minutes. I think that's the 4th most. No, maybe 5th most in minutes. I guess that's kind of by design, and like, you know, she's a really good player, but Can you get more, West Bell to someone who's able to hit from distance in the regular season, maybe at home, she's able to hit a couple and get on the board. She was minus 15. Sammy Whitcomb, kind of same thing. I thought she was out for the series after I watched her leg
Oh
bend,
my
but
gosh, I thought she broke her shin.
these women are flexible and she was just got right back in. Maybe Akoa Makani as well, just being at home and maybe the fans. I don't know. Like it kind of, to me, I feel like, of course, game 3s must win. You lose game 3, you go down 3-0. First 7-game finals in WNBA history. I mean, we've seen it in the NBA. You go down 3-0, it's over.
Yeah.
Most likely.
I think you're 100% right about the X factor, though. Satu Sabali should be the one player that Vegas kind of circles and goes, oh man, this is a bit of a matchup nightmare for us. But when she just takes what they give and doesn't force herself into positions of where she can make easy buckets, I think she's kind of playing into their hands. Like Alyssa Thomas, they were doing a lot of doubling and trapping on her at opportune times, like really timely stuff, and you could tell she was getting frustrated. So if they're drawing an extra person on Alyssa Thomas, then you're playing 4-on-3 with the rest of the Mercury, and it's like, okay, Satu, time to eat, right? And she's been sort of just passive and been very okay with shooting long jumpers. Now, Kalea Copper, I thought, has been awesome. Like when they need a bucket, she is, she's playing so hard offensively to score. But then you look at her, some of her stats, and like she had like a terrible plus minus in that second game. So some of it is probably coming at the expense of defensively, where she's just working so hard on offense. But I think you're right. Satu is the X factor. She needs to have like an excellent game in game 3 for Phoenix to be able to throw their best shot, because they had a great game in game 1 and kind of let it slip away a little bit, but they need to throw some haymakers on Wednesday at home. Like, because what do you have? You have these 2 home games for a reason. You go, okay, Vegas, you did your thing. Now it's our turn to do our thing. They really need to come out with some intention, because if not, you see how Asia Wilson is just so she's like a surgeon with a sharp knife, just so exact in what she wants to do, so perfect in her post moves and getting to her spots. She's playing excellent basketball. I think Jackie Young, I was thinking about this. I was watching the game yesterday. Obviously, I love Caitlin Clark and the way Caitlin Clark plays, love Paige. But like my favorite non-Valkyrie just to watch get buckets or to hoop, it might be Jackie Young. She's so fun to watch. And yesterday's game, what was it? It was the second or the third quarter where she had like 21 points. I think it was the second quarter. She had 21 points in the quarter to like maybe tie or set a record for WNBA finals game. She was amazing. And she was doing the thing where it was like she was so hot. She knew it. Her teammates knew it. And she was just like, give me the ball up top. And she'd take like 2 steps, do a move, pull up from 3, bang. And she did that like 2 or 3 times. I was like, man, this woman is just on fire. But it really is about what Phoenix is going to come out with on Wednesday, because they cannot be passive like in game 2. The Aces just ate that stuff up and spit it back out on them. That game could have been like a 30 or 40 point blowout as it was going. So, yeah, I mean, I've been, yesterday's game, not great. It wasn't all that entertaining, past a certain part of the third quarter, but game 1 was awesome. So I hope Wednesday is a little bit more like that, because that was just awesome basketball. And I think that's I was talking to somebody about this, and actually I did a podcast the other day to talk about the origin story of our Valk stuff. And so we're talking a little bit of WNBA. And as I was thinking about doing his show, I was thinking about how, there's nothing more fun in watching basketball than to watch excellent shot making. And we see some pretty insane shot making in the NBA, but there is some pretty fantastic shot making in the WNBA. Like shot making just is unbiased, right? You have the ball and you have skill and you can do something with it and get a bucket in a like it's one of the best things in sports is to watch somebody cook with the basketball. And that's what I was when I was watching Kalia Copper and Jackie Young, and then you're watching Chelsea Gray just she's looking like Magic Johnson, like throwing no-look passes when there's not really a reason to not look other than to show off and just putting that thing like right on the money. Like that stuff is awesome. So that's what I've been enjoying so far. And I want to see Satu Sabali come up and I think maybe there's a little bit of the fan base who's kind of aching for Alyssa Thomas to show out and get close to her title. So there is still some drama left in this thing. As long as Phoenix wins game 3, I think there's still some pretty good interest in what could happen. So, but it's all about Wednesday in game 3.
I feel like the Valkyries should, assuming CBA negotiations end and we have a season and we have an off season, like they should tell Jackie Young, like, hey, she gets her what it would be her 3rd ring. And if the Aces win and say, hey, you amazing player. I want to say she's, I don't know, maybe 27. I actually have no clue what her age is, but she's kind of been playing behind who might go down as the greatest player of all time. Do you want to be a number 1 on the Valkyries? And they market that and tell her that she would be our star, and we'd have a backcourt of her and Burton. That would be a pretty fun watch. I would love to have Jackie Young on the Valkyries.
Number 1 draft pick in 2019. She is 28 years old. And like athleticism is still like off the hook for her.
I know we weren't totally watching then, but I've heard no offseason talk about this on the podcast, and they had 3 back-to-back number 1 picks. They had Kelsey Plum, next year Asia, next year Jackie. It's a hell of a lottery of luck, man.
I know. It's crazy. So like I said, game 5 or game 3 on Wednesday. Let's stay on the WNBA angle, the league angle, because Napheesa Collier, in her exit interview, went Tupac Shakur all over Kathy Engelbert, and a lot of really pointed comments. And I was a little fearful of how directly disrespectful those comments were until I started to see all of the players back her up. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, because, she's one of the top players in the league. She's being a leader for her crew. She has her own experience as a owner of a small business called Unrivaled. So this is not just thinking like a player. This is thinking bigger and looking at her business of basketball, and that being something that she does not feel is being taken seriously. I'm trying to think, like, at this point, is Kathy just the fall person for Adam Silver to come in here and be the baby face of the whole situation and go like, okay, we've heard this thing and, we're listening or whatever? Because I can't imagine, the public at large, I can't imagine there's lots of fans going like, you know what, that Kathy Engelbert, she's doing a fantastic job right now. This WNBA thing blows up because of Caitlin Clark and the players and the game being so much better and the Bay Area market getting a team. And there's lots of different reasons. And Kathy's trying to keep it all together. And, if we are to believe Napheesa's statements, like just kind of taking it all for granted or maybe wanting some of the credit or whatever. It was just fascinating to see how much Napheesa was comfortable going directly at the woman whose job is to basically keep things going with her basketball league. Like, that was amazing to me.
Yeah, I mean, that was a wild day. I think I was at work and I saw like one Napheesa quote from her exit interview, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe she said that. And so I sent it in our Discord. I sent it to one of my friends, and then I scroll up on my Twitter and there's 7 new tweets of new things she said where I was like, oh my God, I can't believe she said that. And then I was like, okay, so there's definitely something going on in her exit interview. And then you go and watch the exit interview and it's a full on prepared statement before she even takes any questions. So that was another reason to join the Discord. We were live talking about that in real time. We were like, what the hell's going on? And I don't know if you saw, I mean, I'm assuming you did because I think this information came out like a day or two ago, but then Kathy has her like addressing the press or whatever on Friday before the finals.
Yeah, her like statement to kick off the finals or whatever.
And like a day later, Nafisa says, yeah, we're not having that meeting that we agreed to have next week. Like relationship is ruined.
And like, just to kind of give a little bit more context to what you're saying. So Nafisa goes very public with her statements. Kathy sort of says like things are being mischaracterized, including the comment about Caitlin Clark, which she said did not happen in that way. So Nafisa is basically saying, well, if you're not going to take responsibility for that comment, then we really have no reason to have a conversation. Sort of foreshadowing. I'm sure that foreshadowed her what she thought was going to be Kathy giving her a line of BS or something or whatever it was. And that was another statement. Like that was the silent statement by Nafisa just saying, nah, I'm good. And so what, like, how does the public, how do fans see that? And I'm assuming they feel like Nafisa is more powerful than the commissioner of the league. And then what leverage does the commissioner of the league have when the best player or second best player, whatever you want to say, is just like, no, I don't need to do this. This is not part of my job description is to just meet with you. You are not telling the truth and I don't have to stand for that. That is wild to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I think I had like a situation earlier in the year, and it's completely off topic, but it's kind of like resonating with like just the idea of like hearing someone in when you respond to them where I had a neighbor who wasn't entirely thrilled about I think there were a few points that maybe I was running the bath too long when I was washing my dog. And I'll preface this by saying the neighbor and I are very good on good terms, and she's excellent. But when we initially moved in, there were a few complaints. I think it was just because we were the new kids on the block. We're like 30 years younger anyway, so we're just like the easy target. But there was like 3 or 4 things that were kind of listed out in an email that was a little bit of like complaining a little bit about what we did or what they thought we did. And in my opinion, like 90% of that email was incorrect. So I responded in that sentiment that I was like kind of like, here's what you said and here's my response. And not saying you're wrong, but like in my response, you'd be like, no, I'm denying this.
Yes.
And so her response came back and it was not great. Like she was like basically saying this is not an acceptable response. And so my partner gets a hold of it and she's just like a whiz at this, like at the email stuff. And she was able to frame it in a way where it's like, we hear you, but like, you know, some things, sure, some things maybe not, but like we hear you. And it's been great ever since then. And when I listened to Kathy's press conference, I was like, you are not validating anything that Nafisa said. You are doing exactly what I did. And now I don't know what it's like to, of course, hold that kind of position. And you know, maybe if she does validate everything, is she fired? I don't know. But like I when I was listening to that, I was just like, this is pathetic. Like she's not. I totally expected that Nafisa thing where it's like you basically almost called her a liar without calling her a liar, a mischaracterization. So yeah, I'm not surprised that things are going the way it has. I think there's been more stories that came out that's like, where should they be directing their anger in a sense of like, does Kathy even have that much power? Should it be more at the NBA? Because Kathy's just kind of reporting to the NBA owners and Adam Silver. It's like, you know, I don't know how this is going to play out. It doesn't look like it's going in a direction that we as the fans want. Like, I think the real WNBA fans, of course, want these players to get paid.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't feel like we're reaching a solution in time for an October 31st deadline. No way in hell. So yeah, I kind of wonder what's going to happen here. And I think the WNBA and sports as a whole are very lucky that like Nafisa's as smart and outspoken as she is, because I thought that I was just listening to that, like just being like, man, I wish I could stand up for myself like this. So yeah, I don't know. What else do you have? Like
in Kathy's job, I'm sure there are things that she feels are these are kind of problems, just growing pains. And then the next level up is like, okay, like this is something that we're going to have to prioritize. And then there's like crises. Like, I feel like this was a crisis or a crisis, and she treated it like something that could wait. And if I'm Nafisa and company, the fact that she treated it like that is infuriating, because it just leans into the narrative that Kathy is not taking them seriously. So I don't know if Kathy's a good person or a bad person, or a good manager or a bad manager. She's obviously a successful businesswoman, or else she would not be in the role that she is. But some of the, sort of the grit and the just work through it and the there's no crying here, like some of that stuff that it seems that she kind of has built herself around, it doesn't work for everybody.
No.
And that is the thing that she needs to understand. Who are her customers? Well, she works for Adam Silver and the owners. Like, she is the liaison, and she works directly for them, and she works with the players. So you may be able to use that type of speak with some of the owners, a little bit older, a lot older in some cases. But at the same time, that same gruff style may not work with a younger player. Like the idea that, can you speak to a Gen X person the same way that you could speak to what is your generation called?
Gen Z.
Gen Z. Like, do you have to learn how to speak to your folks a little bit differently to get the outcome that you're looking for? So that is what I see. And obviously this is just from the outside looking in. I don't have any real insight that anyone else doesn't have, but it's all about communication. It's literally what it is she has to have the ability to communicate. She has to have the ability to listen, and those players need to believe that she is listening to them and willing to do something about their concerns, like the referee thing. I don't know when is the first person who went to Kathy and said, yo, this referee situation is brutal. But we saw the end of the finals last year, where a lot of people thought the officiating was horrendous in the last game of the most important game of the entire season. As far as I could tell, they didn't really do much different. They just ran it back. And then you had coach after coach after coach be vocal about the officiating, like disrespectful about the officiating. And in some senses, I kind of feel like the disrespect is about the officiating, but it is also for the bigger ears of the bigger boss. And they want that frustration to get to her. And so why is that? Like, why do they feel like they have to yell and scream to get Kathy's attention? So that is something that I think, if you are Kathy's boss, that you should really look into. Like, why did we have to yell and scream and be disrespectful in order for Kathy to pay attention to us? And if Nafisa's comment is correct, that Kathy said only losers complain about officiating, that is such a narrow viewpoint to think about your league in. Like, you should think about making sure that everything about your league is as good as humanly possible with the amount of investment that you could spend. Not that these players who are the key to the whole thing are not tough enough and if they complain, they are actually losers. That is just that is not something that a leader should actually say. So I'm sure this is not the last that we'll hear of it. We'll hear I'm sure Kathy will come back with a much better statement than these ones that she's had, and hopefully Nafisa can kind of be a little bit more calm in these situations, because I think the league or the players need her leadership. And if you're gonna just basically flip your middle finger at the leader and say I'm out, like that's not beneficial either. She could be the thing that helps drive this thing to where the players want it to go. So I hope that she does figure that part out, because she's got a lot of power and influence right now, being the best player or the second best player in the league. And same with Asia, but Asia seems to be a little bit more brand conscious, I guess, because of her stardom. And so maybe Nafisa's personality is a little different, and that is the type of person that they need to be the leader of the players. So that is something that is going to be interesting to see over this next 3 weeks or whatever, until this deadline of October 31st.
Yeah, I think some players are just like a little, like some people are just better at, leading and being outspoken. Like I think Asia is right there with Nafisa, but just might not be like, as good as that type of stuff. You can't expect, I guess, every best player to kind of have that ability. But like Asia did say, like she was disgusted by Kathy's comments.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Michael Jordan, historically, not a great leader of the players, right? Because he had his own brand to protect that was bigger than anybody else's brand, and even to some extent the league's brand. And so he wasn't going to get caught up in that stuff. And Nafisa, this is where I think Unrivaled may have a piece of it, which is she understands the WNBA's business a little bit more than most, because she's got her own startup league, and she saw all of the things that, I'm sure she learned a lot by being the, one of the owners of that league, and being behind getting the sponsorships, and how did they get the money, and all of that. That was probably like almost getting a business degree, in a sense, of just doing that. So she's also coming at it from a much smarter side than before she started running the league. So that's what I think is something also to check in on. Like, what if Unrivaled was just like, we're going to 30 teams, we're taking all of your players, and then the WNBA goes, well, we're giving all of these players a 2x or 3x increase, but we are allowing teams to have their contracts written out so that they can't play in Unrivaled. And then it's like, checkmate. Do you want to do that to Nafisa and Brianna? So this whole thing is so interesting. It's, these are business women, and they are really smart, and they understand that they are at the kind of at like the breaking point of whether this league continues to take off like it has, but they also have the power and control to kind of deflate it a little bit with a work stoppage. So there's a lot of pressure here for everyone involved.
Yeah, I thought that this was going to get resolved, in that I thought that, maybe the owners and the NBA would kind of just give in a little bit and be like, like this, you can't have that same conversation that this league is losing money that people might have said a couple years ago. Like there's clear, like you can look at the attendance, like the Valkyries sold out every single game. You can look at, every single NBA owner seems to now want to get into the league, with Philly, with Detroit, and there's still way more. Like I know Boston's trying bad, and there's just so many factors of the Caitlyn effect, the Paige effect, the Angel effect, just like so many eyes, and it feels like it's everywhere, and you can't say like this isn't like a profitable thing. Like it clearly is. So I don't know. I kind of feel like I thought that this would get resolved and that people would come to their senses a little more, but it kind of seems like they're not, like really kind of budging still. And that to me, like I think you do a work stoppage if you're the players, and like kind of hold strong on this, because they're not coming around. I think
every time a work stoppage has happened, it has taken some time for the fans to come back. So that is what you are risking. The owners probably know that as well.
Yeah, this is too like corporate like annoyance for me. Like I feel like the players shouldn't have to budge. Like I feel like they're the reasons why we're watching all this. They're the reasons. Like
One of the complex things, and we'll move on after this, is that in the NBA, like, so the league signed the $77 billion deal on the with their latest TV negotiation. So because you have the owners and the players, and they have negotiated a 50-50 split, it is very easy to figure out where the money goes. In the WNBA, the split is not 50-50 with owners and players because there's a league investment by the NBA. You have a WNBA ownership that owns some of the league. There's a little bit of double dipping with both WNBA and NBA owners being the same. And then there's this, they had to raise some money. And so they have like these individual owners that are involved. And then you have the players. So it's so much harder to kind of split the money. I would love to see, I don't know if we'll actually see it, but as they renegotiate this thing, like what percentage of basketball related income do the players actually get? Because
I saw 9%.
Yeah, I'm talking about for the new one, for what they want to negotiate, because it's not. I don't think it can be 50 with the way the money is split up.
No, because the NBA gets 50, and so then they have to take that other 50 and then divide it amongst the three groups that you mentioned.
Right. So what does that number get to? Because when you get to that number, then it'll make a little bit more sense to how much the salaries will increase and all of those things. But like, I would love to know what the players want, or what they would agree to as to what that basketball related income percentage is going to be.
Yeah,
and there's other things involved too. They want certain, they actually went a good amount last time on mothers and care, and then they got the flights last year, the private flights last year. So there have been sort of slowly but surely. I'm sure they feel like at this point they want a lot more than this slowly but surely. Salaries, benefits, all of the stuff, because this is their one chance, right? It is their one opportunity in the history of this league where they actually have a chance to negotiate for big stuff.
Yeah, and I think they're just going to hold strong on the first point, which is that percentage, and we'll see where they get to, because I think that we've said it multiple times on this podcast, but it's like, we want something. Okay, then what are you going to give us on the other side, from like that being the owners? And I just think they might really just hold strong on this revenue share percentage. And I just wonder, like, what else is going to get addressed if they're just putting so much energy and focus into that first point, which I do believe requires that much energy and focus if they're not budging. But who knows, the officiating might slip under the kind of not be as high of a issue point for them, because they're fighting for, like, dude, $70,000 for the first year of a rookie contract or whatever it is. Like, what are we doing? So we will see.
All right, that ends the Podhala segment of Golden State Hoop, and let's talk some Warriors with the Death Lineup. Warriors! So we talked a little bit about Kuminga at the top, but he wasn't the only person who they have added to the roster. That is Al Horford, who played last night. DeAnthony Melton, who they're bringing along slowly because of his knee injury last year. GP2 is back. And Seth Curry, who is currently on the roster, they will then waive him and bring him back after the season starts. What do you think about the additions to this basketball team? Not that these are surprises. We knew all of this for pretty much the whole summer, but now that they're finally done. And I don't know if you got to see any of the game last night, but Al did play. So you got to see a little bit of the wrinkles. What do you think about the acquisitions?
Awesome. I like them. I think I think it makes sense to not like have this big splash in the free agency. You know, we were waiting on the Kuminga thing, and then it kind of ends up being Horford, Melton, Seth in a little bit, and then you bring JK back. It's like you think about it contextually. It's like this team. We've said it before in this podcast. I feel like sometimes we're just recycling information, but there's an argument to be made that they win that Minnesota series if Steph does not get hurt. I think there's a likely argument that happens just seeing after how game one went. And, you know, if that's the case, you're in a Western Conference Finals with Oklahoma City, who you've kind of played well since they have kind of started to be good. You've always, regardless of if you were the 8th seed or if you were missing the play-in entirely in the CP3 year, they've always kind of played OKC good. So, you know, you never know how that works out. I don't know if I could say the Warriors would have won in the Western Conference Finals against OKC, but I'm not saying OKC would have stomped them by any means. I think it could have been a tight series, but then you just take that and you add on Horford and you add on Melton, and you basically add 2 more playoff reliable pieces that, you know, Steve Kerr trusts to a team that could have went to the Western Conference Finals. Like, I think, like, contextually, like, that, to me, they are a top 3 contending team in the West behind OKC and Denver. You know,
even ahead of Minnesota.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Ahead of Minnesota. We'll see how. I mean, I'm not saying they will finish top 3 in the West. I think they'll probably finish in like the 5th, hopefully 4th. Of course, hopefully higher, but I could realistically see 4 to 5. You know, all those 35-year-old dudes and up. Like,
stay out of the play-in.
We'll see if they, you know, can cross the 65 game mark, and if so, how much more games will they play? Like, we'll have to see during that time how everyone else kind of steps up and if they're able to string together some wins for the regular season. But I feel like in that 4 to 5 range is where I'm kind of predicting, but I think they are a top 3 team in the West. So, I mean, I think it looked good last night. I only watched up to half, but there was a play where Draymond, like, I think kind of bit on maybe like a Gabe Vincent cross or something. And usually it's like, Draymond bit, like, we kind of have like, all right, layup, like bucket if Draymond couldn't catch up. And then you see Horford skying for a block. And I'm like, whoa, like,
he came out of nowhere. I was like,
yeah,
I did not expect that to happen.
Yeah. Like, Draymond is just, you know, one of the smartest defensive players I've ever watched in my life. And you put another smart defensive player next to him and Horford, another one with Jimmy. It's like, I think things start to make sense and start to look good. So I'm very hopeful about the addition. I felt like Steph was a little in mid-season form yesterday, already hitting some of those wild threes, which kind of makes sense because he hasn't played basketball in a while because he did not play in most of the Timberwolves series. And he's probably like itching to get back because
no Olympics this summer.
No Olympics, no offseason. You know, that would actually be the only offseason commitment would be Olympics. But yeah, just a full summer of rehab and training. And yeah, I think Draymond was the only one to me that looked a little like, okay, maybe he's not in full game speed shape, but I'm not worried about that. I think he's going to be just fine. Yeah, I mean, this is a training camp where you get to kind of actually finally work through with Jimmy. I had a Laker friend who was kind of trying to give me a sales pitch on the Lakers. It's like, oh, well, we finally get like a full training camp of Luka and LeBron. You add Ayton and Marcus Smart. And then I was thinking about it, I was like, the Warriors did as good as they did last year, and they actually didn't even have that training camp with Steph and Jimmy, and you know, Jimmy integrated with the rest of the team. So that makes me even more high on them. But I think to me, it's just Steve Kerr has more players that he trusts that we actually believe in. You know, it's like, it's not like Anthony Lamb. It's like Al Horford and DeAnthony Melton hoping that he gets healthy. And I don't know if you noticed, but I think Kuminga's minutes, there was a clear intent on crashing the glass really hard and not really, at least in the halftime minutes that I saw up to. There was a clear intent of doing what, you know, Steve has been asking of him since he was drafted. And I was keeping note of that. I was like, like, I think the relationship is probably screwed, but like, he does that for half the season. I would, I mean, and they look good because of it. Like, who knows?
It also depends who's out there at the trade deadline. Maybe the player that you're trading Kuminga for doesn't even fit your team as good as Kuminga, and then you just keep him. But
yeah, and in Kuminga's mind, he might just be doing that so he gets minutes and he's not, you know, because otherwise it's like he does the old stuff and Steve Kerr goes, okay, you're benched. And then he's not able to get traded and maybe have the team opt out of his deal and then negotiate the long-term deal. Like, that's probably long-term what he wants, is to get traded, have the team opt out of the team option. Then he restructures and renegotiates a long-term deal with whatever team he's traded to. And to do that, he needs to be on the floor. And so I could see like doing the little things to stay on the floor might be beneficial to him. But it looks good with the Warriors. It looks good when he's crashing the glass, as athletic as he is, and fighting hard for that stuff.
There were a couple moments in the game, early in the game, where he did the normal Kuminga thing where I was like, oh, old habits die hard, man. Like he caught the ball out near the 3-point area, and you could tell it was either swing immediately or do something with the basketball. And he took it and he did like a jab step right, which allowed the defense to catch up to everything. And then it's like the play was over. And I was like, these are old habits that he's got to figure out. And later in the game, there was a moment where, because I think when we watch him, if he hesitates and then he shoots, we automatically think he's going to miss. And there was an opportunity late second, maybe it's the third quarter, where he kind of caught it and immediately shot the three, and it looked really smooth and it looked like something that was supposed to happen. And I was like, oh, that looked great. And then he made it. And then you watch Moses Moody and you go, man, this dude does everything that Steve Kerr wants him to do, offensively and defensively. So it makes a lot of sense as to why he's getting the run out there. And then you compare him to JK, and it's like, if Moses Moody had the JK body and he was doing all of those things, you've got like one of the best young wings in the game. But it's just who they are. I think if JK was just a sliver more, if he's just stopped hesitating, if he could figure out exactly what he wanted to do before he had to do it, I think a lot of the stuff that he does that makes us kind of scratch our heads would just be gone, because you're like, okay, that was definitive. That's exactly what he wanted to do. He got it, made a basketball move, and he's literally at the rim. If that play was supposed to go to Steph, but he actually scored the 2 points, I don't think you can really blame him for that. But it's when he cannot put those chain moves together and it stalls the offense, and then he misses the layup, and then Steph is open in the corner, where you're like, this guy's driving me nuts. Just be more decisive. I think that's really the whole key to his game, is be more decisive. And if you do the wrong thing, my bad. Like, I acknowledge that, my bad, and just keep it moving. Because, this whole game that they've been playing, he and Steve together, of doesn't do the things that we want him to do, and JK, like, oh, I get picked on, like, that thing is just not going to work for this season, because they have one goal, which is what you said. And Steve Kerr was on Tim Kawakami today, could not shut up about the stat of what their record was once Jimmy Butler came on their team. He just kept repeating that over and over and over, and he's using that as the reason why they believe that they have a chance this year.
Yeah, and I think that's valid. Like, I think some of those times when, you'd see a good stretch of Kuminga, and then it's like, why is he not playing in the playoffs? Or like, why is he getting benched here? It's like those teams weren't all that good. And, in JK's defense, he could be like, dude, like Anthony Lamb's playing in front of me. Like, what the hell? Like, I hate to keep picking on Anthony Lamb, but like those teams kind of didn't have, we thought that they might make some noise in the playoffs, but they weren't like true championship contenders, the year after the title, and then leading up to this Jimmy year, where he can kind of be like, you're benching me, but like, what else do we have? This time we actually have something, since Jimmy came, like, so Steve could have really used that and be like, dude, like, you barely got run, and without you, it looked like we were going to maybe get to the Western Conference Finals. And not that he's actually picking on Kuminga, but that's more of a way for him to enforce what he believes is true, is saying, like, if you do these things, like, you'll find the court. If not, you probably won't as much, and we'll be fine.
So the Warriors have a game on Wednesday. Then they play against Trailblazers. Lakers on Sunday. Trailblazers again the following Tuesday. Clippers that Friday, and then the season begins October 21st. And I think that is an NBC game. What day of the week is October 21st? That is
Like a
a
Monday or Tuesday?
It's a Tuesday. So the season is not that far away. And the fact, I think it's an NBC game. Is it going to be wild for you? Because I think your entire life basketball has been on TNT or with Turner. Is it going to be weird to go, where's the game on? And somebody goes, oh, you got to watch it on Peacock, or you got to watch it on NBC, or it's on Amazon Prime. Like it's just games are going to be a little different this year for a lot of people.
I think the NFL kind of got me ready for that, because like it's just wild how many different places you have to go to for the NFL. So I don't think it'll be as much of a shock once I have to start doing it for the NBA. Like, okay, yeah, I get it. It sucks, stupid that I have to go to Peacock or Prime or these other places, but I already know.
They were on NBC when Michael Jordan was at his peak. They left NBC to go to ESPN. I think it was after MJ retired the second time, maybe. It was like post Wizards, I think. And so now that, now they're back. So it's been, 25 years since they've been on NBC. And I'm kind of excited because NBC has Sunday Night Football, obviously. And when Sunday Night Football is over, I think basketball will transition into that Sunday night slot. So that will be pretty cool. And then they'll have Monday Peacock games. And then on Amazon Prime, I'm still not really used to watching sports through that app, though I did have to watch the 49ers game the other day through that app. And they have like these little gimmicky things. So I watched it in a different way. I didn't watch the normal broadcast because I just wanted to see how you can watch it differently. And I think they have some bells and whistles for the NBA as well. So, and obviously Disney and ESPN, that the no Doris Burke this year. It's Tim Legler instead of Doris Burke, and Mike Breen and Richard Jefferson and Tim Legler. They're just cracking jokes on each other all game long. And I was like, is this what this is going to be, man? Or I hope it's just for the first preseason game, because I don't want to hear these guys do a podcast while I'm watching basketball. But so the league is it'll be a little different, and then we'll see what happens with Inside the NBA being on ESPN this year. I think the opening week they're doing their first game. So Chuck and Kenny and Ernie and Shaq will be on ESPN. So that'll be a little different too. So lots of intrigue, especially with the broadcasting heading into the new season of the NBA. But hey, you can't take, and I saw Warriors Twitter getting so excited about how well Moses Moody was playing. And I'm like, come on, guys, you know better. This is just preseason. But Kerr had lots of praise for Moses, lots of praise for Pods. People are thinking that Pods is getting in his Jalen Brunson bag this year. Steph looked great, obviously. I did watch and wonder, okay, if Horford plays alongside Draymond, is Draymond almost going to be like, I don't have to do as much, so thus, what do I do? Like, kind of thing. Like, what does Draymond do if he doesn't have to cover so much of the court? So that'll be an interesting pairing. I'm actually interested to see how they play together, Horford and Draymond. Maybe they just like cover the whole back end of the of the bucket, and then it's just like, oh my gosh, this is craziness. But that's what I'm interested to see too. So. All right. I think we're good for this episode. We'll be back next week, probably not on Monday, maybe back in our normal slot. And who knows, the finals may be over by the time we come back. And also by the time we come back, it'll be like a week away from the season starting. So, all right. So that is it from here. That is the end of our death lineup segment of Golden State Hoop. So, for Brian, I am Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.